Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, this is Joanne Victoria with another amazing episode of the Sanity Project podcast, a place for people in the self-improvement, leadership, and management areas to help you, the listener, make some changes in your life and learn. You're here to discover a life of clarity, confidence, and success. And our guest today is going to give you success regarding food. Her name is McLaughlin. And her latest book is Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life, a 6-step system to peace with food. Oh my Lord, if we could have peace with food. It just seems like an enemy sometimes. And Kim is going to talk about mindless eating and cravings, and I'm going to ask her every question that I want to know, because this is about me today, people. Because I have food issues. It improved for a while when I was on the keto diet, but now that I'm off it, it sucks again. And McLaughlin is a psychotherapist, has a master's degree in clinical psychology. She's the author of Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life, a 6-step system to peace with food. And she also has her own podcast called Feed Your Soul with Kim. And we'll get into more about that in a few minutes. But right now, let's talk about mindless eating and cravings with McLaughlin. Kim, welcome to the show.
Hi, Joanne. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is my favorite topic, so I'm glad we get to talk and talk more about food and mindless eating. And dang, it can be a problem, huh?
It is. It can be a problem. It can be a problem. No matter how healthy the food is that I buy, it just gets away from me. Yeah. Tell our listeners how you got on this path. I mean, did you just wake up one day and said, I'm going to help people with their food?
Well, that's interesting. It kind of did. Now that I've never thought of it that way, but it kind of did. So I've had food issues since I was a kid. I started remembering overeating and really obsessing about food when I was about 8 years old, which was also, interestingly enough, when my parents got a divorce. And when my parents got a divorce, my brother, my mom, and I moved from Southern California to Northern California. So we really had this time of moving away, and I didn't talk with my dad much. And so he kind of was out of the picture for quite a few years. And, we never talked about feelings. And now when I look back at it, I think, wow, that's so interesting that we never had conversations about how it felt like to be a divorced family or to not have a dad around. And it was just nothing we ever talked about. And it's interesting because I have an 11-year-old myself right now, and she notices her friends that have divorced family, and she talks about her feelings about their divorce. And it makes me think like, dang, when I was that age, I didn't ever talk about it. We didn't have conversations. So what I see now is that what I began to do was really put my energy into food and to when am I going to eat? How much am I going to eat? Is it the right kind of food? Can I sneak it? Can I hide it? Where am I going to get it? And how am I going to really be satisfied? Kind of, how am I going to be satiated? And it just never felt like I was satiated. And when I was in my early teens, I went on my first diet, and it was actually back in the day, it would be kind of like a keto kind of thing. It was a high protein kind of diet. And I remember my mom saying, Kim, if you're going to go on this diet, you have to really do it because it costs a lot of money to buy all of the meat, all of the protein that you're going to eat. And I remember her saying that to me, like if I was going to do it, I had to be really committed. And, just eating all meat isn't really fun after a while. And so it was my first foray into dieting. And ever since then, I always say I've never been on every diet imaginable, but I've been on the same diet over and over, expecting different results, right? Insanity. The same diet over and over, but I expect different results. I never got the different results. It would always be like I'd be on whatever kind of diet or whatever kind of exercise program, and I would release some weight. I would release a lot of weight sometimes, but then like you were talking with keto is like, and then once you go off of it, the weight comes back or the kind of dysregulation with food comes back. And it wasn't until I was well into adulthood that my daughter was 2 years old. So this would have been like 9 years ago. She was 2 and I just felt upset at my work and didn't know what I was going to do. And I was working in nonprofit mental health. And I decided that I needed to leave my job and start something new. And I realized like I'm a licensed psychotherapist. I actually could start my own business as a licensed psychotherapist. Why don't I do that? And then, like you said, I did wake up and go, well, but what am I going to focus on? What would it be about? And I decided that I really wanted to help people around eating issues and binge eating issues and emotional eating and compulsive eating, because that's always been my thing. And I hear people talk so often about struggling with it that I thought I could help them with that. And at the time I was reading, Janine Roth had just come out with a book.
Yeah.
And I've always loved her stuff. I love what she has to say. And I thought, this can be my model. This can be something that I start talking with people about because they're suffering and they're struggling. And so I spent a lot of time studying intuitive eating, health at every size, body positivity, all these ways of looking at food. And I also got a certificate in eating disorder treatment. So like I felt like I had the kind of clinical educational training now to go in and help people in a way that moved off of the whole idea of a diet and really moved people into feeding their souls and having peace with food. And ever since I've done that, it has been such an extraordinary win for the people that I work with, but it's also for me too, like just getting the clarity of kind of what food means for me and what do I literally, how do I want to come to the table and look at food differently? And it's been really interesting. It's been a really good journey of really making peace with food. I don't know that I'm going to ever say, on my deathbed, I'll say, oh, I have 100% peace with food. The way I see it is that I make peace with food and then something else shows up, and it generally shows up around food because that's just my thing. It's just where my issue goes to. And truthfully, it's not like alcohol or cigarettes or drugs where you can just say, I'm not going to do it. We literally have to eat. And what can be confusing is, so if I'm going to have a peace with food, use intuitive eating, like, what does that mean? Well, what do I eat then? Because it's not a diet. The diet's keto, whatever it is, they'll tell you, well, this is what you eat, and this is what you eat, and this is what you eat. But when we go into intuitive eating, it's really using your body and your inner compass that says, well, what really do I want to eat? What's really good for my body right now? What is my body calling out for? And I got to say, those of us that have been on repeated diets, that have had food issues for a long period of time, we can't trust our bodies. We don't know if our body's really telling us the truth or if it's lying to us, or, if I really want that candy, is that good for me? Is that bad for me? And we really struggle with making peace with food and really going back to that idea when we were really little, where we just knew what to eat. Little kids know what to eat. They know when they're hungry and they know when they're full and they stop. They might not always have the best food choices. I mean, we have to kind of steer them in the direction of vegetables and some fruits and, kind of that balance. But they literally won't eat candy 24/7. They won't. I mean, they will be drawn towards the proteins and the fats and the veggies and the fruits because those are what their body wants. And I tell you, you cannot make a kid overeat, even if it's candy. My daughter, I can't tell you how often it floored me when she was little, and she'd leave a cupcake. She'd eat a little bit of it and she'd leave it on the counter. And she'd say, I'm full. Like, and I just thought, well, how can
it's a cupcake. How could you leave it?
How can you leave that? What do you mean full? What does full have to do with anything?
Right.
It was crazy. I learned so much by watching her eat. And I mean, literally watching her eat, but like the food that she would leave and she'd say, I want more food. And like, I'd give her more. And then she'd eat a bite and she'd go, I'm done. Well, but you have more food. I'm done. She'll say this. It's beautiful. She'll say, my tummy says I've had enough. It's like, really? Your tummy just told you that? Okay. I love that. I think about that, like as a kid, who doesn't have any disordered eating, they just know when they're hungry, when they're full, and you cannot make them overeat. And I thought, I want to be like that. I want to go back to that kind of kid style of just knowing when you need to eat. The problem is when we start dieting, we have somebody else telling us when to eat, what to eat, how much to eat, when to stop. You're supposed to have a fast. You're supposed to only eat protein. You're supposed to only have this, and that we become kind of slaves, so to speak, to what we're told to do. And then we'll say, well, I'm going to do this diet. So get this, Victoria, this is like, you do this thing and you do it until you've lost the weight. And it's like, okay, now I'm going to start normal eating. Oh, and then you try and eat normally, right? And then
what's normal?
What's normal? You don't know how, because this whole time you've done keto or you've done Whole30 or you've done whatever it is. It's like you think, well, when I've lost the weight, then I'll eat normally. Well, the thing is, we got to practice normal and be in normal every day, right? That's that piece with food. But we get scared that, well, I'm going to be fat. I'm going to gain weight. I can't lose weight. And we get really caught up in our body and in our size rather than, I need to eat to live. I need to eat to give me energy. I need to eat to do make my brain work. And we move off of that and into what somebody else tells us to do. So to me, it's like a lifelong process of using food as a way to get back in touch with myself, not just the physical aspect, but the emotional. I'd say in my book, there are 6 core components: the physical, emotional, the mental, the lifestyle, mindfulness, and self-love. That when all of those are in balance, we're going to be good with food. But when we just focus on the physical, which is, did I release weight? Am I getting skinny? Am I eating the food on the diet? We've missed the other 5 components, and we're not getting ourselves in balance. And actually, we're getting ourselves more out of balance, because what we know is once we start dieting, there's a binge that's going to show up at a certain point in time. It might not be a month. It might not be a week or a month. It might be a year. But there's a binge that's going to show up because we haven't learned how to have food in our lives in a calm, intuitive manner.
Yeah, I started keto, I can't remember, a year and a half ago, and it's 20% protein, 60% vegetables, and the rest is fat. You're substituting fat for the carbs. Uh-huh. And since I hated carbs anyway, that was not a problem.
Right.
But after about 6 months, I was good for 6 months. And I think that's a pretty good average for people who are not obese. Mm-hmm. If you're obese, which I never was, but I just wanted to lose weight and feel better, the energy I had was absolutely incredible. Mm-hmm. My mind was clear, so on and so forth, yada, 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 move forward. But after 6 months, I missed cake. So I still wanted my cake. The world is falling apart. Let's just eat cake. And then came a time recently where I had to get out of keto and go and transition to a diet with carbs, which is very difficult for me because I hate them. Mm-hmm. Carbs being, and certain things that I won't eat, like nightshade. Mm-hmm. Vegetables.
They're not good for your body. You don't have a good reaction with them. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No. The only thing nightshade I will eat once in a while, maybe 4 to 6 times a year, is red peppers, because at least they're finished growing. Green peppers I wouldn't touch with a any of the nightshades don't work with me, and I don't need anything to support anything negative about me.
Right.
But this transition back to carbs is not easy.
Yeah.
It is just terrifically painful to put a carb in my mouth.
Because you don't like how it tastes, or you don't like how it feels, or your head says it's bad food for you.
Bad food.
Yeah.
And it's going to make me gain that weight back. Although, other side, I have been able to lose a little bit more weight. It's taken very long because I weigh myself every day now. I'm pretty much obsessive.
Uh-huh.
And I have to look at what I'm eating, look at my fat grams. I can't eat too much fat. I think I'm down to a total of 45 to 50 fat grams per day, and that's all fat, good and bad fat. Mm-hmm. And that's still not very much. That includes your eggs and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And it's a challenge to do that for my health. Mm-hmm. And, it's just a challenge. And
I get it. It's like you're talking about all the things that really make it hard for us to, it's like, that's where, when we talk about peace with food, exactly what you're talking about is, measuring fat grams. I don't like the way I feel. My head says this is bad food, and that really creates a lot of drama inside of us around food. And it's more freeing to have more of a peaceful way. And then I can have a piece of cake. I just don't want the whole cake. And I like to look at it that there's no good food and there's no bad food. It's just food. And is it food that's going to give me the energy to do the things that I need to do during my day? And I've found for myself and for my clients that that's a really good way to look at it, that, I'm going to eat this. Well, how am I going to feel? If I have cake for dinner, okay, it might taste good, but how am I going to feel it, body, mind, spirit afterwards? Sure. And what do I, and where is that for me? And it takes kind of energy or time to do that. It's not, and so it becomes the idea of asking questions and then being mindful with the food and going, well, so really, is this what I really want? Is this as much as I need? And what's going to work for me? And, once as we're moving into peace with food, our body doesn't want cake 24/7. It just doesn't. And when we are constantly craving that, I always look to, well, what's the emotion? And I like to ask myself when I have those cravings is, so Kim, what's going on with you? Like talking to myself like a little kid, like, there, honey, what's going on?
Sure.
You're wanting a lot of, I'll always say, you can have the cake if you'd like it. That's fine. But let's just have a little conversation first. What's going on? Because you normally don't have cake at 3:00 in the afternoon. That doesn't always work so well. What's up? And I always find, whether I do it or my clients do it, is that there is an emotion behind it of something going on. Well, I feel sad. Well, I feel lonely. I feel tired. I feel bored. And then we get to have the conversation about that with ourselves, which helps us back off of that instant gratification of eating something sweet. And I don't want to demonize sweets. I know often sweets are the things that show up when we're having more emotions coming up, that sweets are the things that we tend to be drawn to because we think they're bad food and that we shouldn't have them. They're dangerous. And so we generally want what's dangerous and what we think is bad because I'm not feeling good, so I want this kind of bad thing. But if we move it into what's going on for me, I can have the cake if I want it. And what's up for me, it will generally be a great question to help you move into understanding what's underneath that craving. And really knowing, okay, is this what I really want? Is this from my physical hunger, or is this something else going on? What we know is that if we eat when we're not hungry and we're having more of an emotional hunger, we're not satisfying the emotional hunger. No. It doesn't get satisfied. And then what happens is, so we eat, we're not hungry. We eat this food for emotional hunger. we don't satisfy the emotional hunger. We then feel angry at ourselves that we ate something that really we weren't hungry for. Then we're upset with ourselves. Then we get angry and we say, well, I need to restrict some more because I can't do that. That's bad. And so we get in this cycle of restricting, binging, feeling shame. And that cycle goes on and on until we start saying, hold on a second, what's going on here? And move out of that cycle and into, once again, more of a place of peace with food.
Well, what's interesting is during this, my personal transition from a keto diet to, let's say, a Mediterranean type diet, because they say that is the most popular, although it still has there are still restrictions for me on the Mediterranean diet.
I would think, yeah. Especially with the whole nightshade thing, like you'd have to be careful what
I know.
What
Yeah. So I've been conscious of the nightshade thing for a long time. So I don't get stuck into that. And, I have, it's like, what food is your slippery slope? It's like, what food is going to open up the gateway to hell? And for me, that's like tomato sauce, because tomato sauce can go on pizza. It can go on pasta, and I don't eat wheat. So, I'm stuck with brown rice pasta, or quinoa pasta, neither of which tastes like pasta if you're Italian.
True.
And it's just, just not there. But, there's that slippery slope that if you eat that one thing, the gates to hell are open. And I say that on purpose, that the gates to hell are open. So I have no problem being conscious about what I'm doing. It's just that at this point, my food choices are limited and I resent that.
Yes.
But for my health, I have to be cautious. And, if you have a choice, Joanne, do you want to live or do you want to eat what you want to eat? So, there is that.
I think that for people that are, the same thing would hold with people that are like lactose intolerant, that get their tummy gets upset, or IBS, or they have diabetes. Like there are foods that just don't, your body basically says, this is toxic to me.
Yes.
We're not going to feel good. And if we eat that, it's not going to work. And that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. Speaking of, as a sidebar, I did read yesterday that one very large milk plant shut down because people are not drinking cow's milk anymore.
Yeah.
They're drinking soda, juices, and almond milk, which is a misnomer. But I never drank milk. I don't like milk. So I don't have to worry about that.
Right.
But I also don't eat cow cheese. I don't eat anything from the cow. Anything.
Right.
Because,
and there are a lot of people in that situation where if they eat it, they're going to break out or their stomach's going to be upset, irregardless of whether you think cow's milk is, good for you or not. It's just, there's some people that really have that negative reaction. And what I found is that when we have a dysregulated relationship with food, is that people will eat food that they know will make them feel sick.
Yes.
They know, like you drink that milk, you have that yogurt, you will feel sick because your body says, this is danger, this is bad. Yeah. Nightshades are the same thing. Wheat is the same for some people.
Yes, for me as well.
You don't even, you can have you might not have a disorder, celiacs or anything like that, but just, it might not make your body feel as good as you'd like it to feel. And that becomes tough. Because they're kind of, I like what, it's like regular food, tomato sauce. I mean, you have to be really mindful of, does this thing have tomato sauce? Does this thing have tomato sauce? And it becomes a real constant being vigilant, which can be tough. I don't want to do that. I don't like doing that. I feel angry that I have to do that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel, although I have to become, mindful as one of your 6 steps to peace with food, is that this is just the way it is. It's not the end of the world. I have lots of choices. We certainly do. And, I'm not living in the time where years ago when your parents, or my parents at least, and I don't even know if it's true that they did that, but you have to clean your plate because there are people starving in pick a country. You can't name countries anymore because somebody listens to this, they would get upset, but yeah, whatever. But you know what I'm talking about. And it was a terrible way to bring up children. Regarding food. It's like, okay, finish that plate, whether you like it, whether it's good for you or any of that. So this 6 steps, your 6-step system, you have it in a book, Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life. You also have you have free top tips to end emotional eating at feedyoursoulunlimited.com. Is that the best place for people to find information out about what you do?
Yeah, they totally can find out what I do. They can, on that, my blog, or that's where you can find my blog, where I talk a lot about all different kind of aspects of overeating. You can find the free gift, the top tips, which is really good. It's exactly what we're talking about in terms of the starting spot of making some peace with food and reimagining how food fits in your life. Also on my website is my podcast. There's links to my podcast there. We've been talking about on my podcast all things about food. I think this week, I know everybody's going to hear this a lot later, but we talked this week about stress eating. And so that was a really good one where I'll have lots of podcasts on holidays and overeating, and also a new year with kind of like, how do you reimagine life with food in its proper places, nourishment, and using intuitive eating. So there's a lot of opportunities for people to get more information because, like we've been talking about, food issues show up in a lot of different ways, right? I think yours is really interesting because it's about, there are foods that I just can't have that make me sick, and I don't like that. And like making peace with food in that way is a little bit more difficult because like I get sick and I don't want to get sick. And then it becomes, how am I going to love myself through not eating this food? Because it just, I think loving ourselves and not having a food that makes us, it's loving when we don't eat a food that makes us sick, right? I think we're really hurting ourselves when we eat a food knowing it's going to make you sick, that it's like, oh, what's going on that I don't want to take care of myself. And so it becomes a really rich opportunity for that inner dialogue about, so what does this mean for me? And how would I like to treat myself? How can I treat myself in a healthier manner, in a way that's really loving? Because you're loving of yourself when you don't eat, for you, when you don't eat, tomatoes, you're loving yourself. You're saying, correct. Oh, I'm worthy. Right. You're kind of giving this internal message of, I'm being loving towards myself. And that's a really powerful message, kind of just to you kind of on an inner and an outer basis.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I'm glad you said that. That gives me, again, move to the left and adapt, and I have a different perspective on that.
Yeah.
Yes. Everything that's on a pizza, I cannot eat.
Oh, there you go.
Pretty much. So I stay away from it.
It's just, it's food that makes you sick, and I don't want to be sick. Like, I physically will be sick if I eat this, and I don't want to be sick.
And the thing of it is, these reactions to food doesn't just last 5-10 minutes.
Yes.
It could last days.
Yes.
And that's what people have to know, that they're making themselves sick on purpose if they do this. If they know, okay, I can't eat that, but I'm going to eat that.
Right.
I'm going to make myself eat that. And then they eat it, and then it goes on for at least 24 hours.
I totally get it. And it becomes the question of, so what's going on that this food is more important than how I feel?
Correct.
And it's more important than myself. And it becomes the, how do I think about it differently? How do I reimagine that? As you said, there are lots more other yummy foods. Like, it doesn't have to be pizza.
Right.
You can make something that approximates the idea of a pizza. It just won't be a pizza, but it can be something that's extremely yummy. And when we start looking at it and like, I deserve yummy food.
So have you written your cookbook yet?
I'm actually not that. I actually look for recipes that are yummy. Like, that's my thing is, to me, life is too short to eat rice cakes. And I remember eating a lot of rice cakes when I was on, those little rice things that are nasty food that.
I'm aware.
They're low in calorie, and they were like diet. And so they didn't taste good.
They don't taste good, and you're really not supposed to eat anything out of its natural form. I mean, that's rice. So if you want to eat rice cakes, eat a quarter of a cup of boiled rice. I mean,
I never thought about it that way, but that makes a lot. That's true. And there are some foods that I really associate with dieting that, to me, dieting is not yummy. And so eating whole food that is yummy, that just is satisfying for me, for my body, I'm all in.
Well, I think you can write a book that would incorporate some of your aspects, even if you don't have recipes. A small book. It doesn't have to be huge, but I think it could be a good companion to Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life, a 6-step system to peace with food by Kim McLaughlin. You can go to her website at feedyoursoulunlimited.com and get free tips and tools to help end emotional eating. And you can find Kim on Facebook at Kim McLaughlin LMFT. You can find her on LinkedIn at Kim McLaughlin. There are several places where she is, and I would say people just re-listen to this podcast, because that's what I tell everyone to do, because I'm sure you've missed something. Mm-hmm. If you think you've taken enough notes, you haven't. So go back for the minutia and re-listen to the podcast to see what you've missed and take more notes. Yes. I want to thank Kim McLaughlin for being here today. It's great that she has a topic that certainly is curious to me, and I'm sure most people that are listening. And since I have a lot of female listeners, you know what I'm talking about.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I love having these conversations, and thank you for introducing me to your people.
Well, I'm sure they're going to be grateful for you, as I am as well. And, they need all the help they can get. And this is the place where I just open it up to how someone can help discover a life of clarity, confidence, and success. Mm-hmm. And today it's about food.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Great. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.